He emerged into the public consciousness not with a whisper, but with a jar of mayonnaise. Edward Allen Brown, a man who would soon be known globally by the moniker Big Ed, presented himself as a hopeful romantic, a 54-year-old photographer from San Diego ready to risk it all for love. His target was a world away, in the Philippines, Rosemarie Vega, a 23-year-old single mother he had met online. The narrative was set, a classic tale of international romance in the digital age, but the story that unfolded would become a masterclass in cringe-worthy moments, cultural insensitivity, and the birth of a reality television anti-hero. His journey began with a palpable, almost childlike giddiness. Cameras followed him as he packed, meticulously choosing outfits and fretting over details. He spoke of Rose with a kind of reverent affection, but under the surface, cracks were already beginning to show. He admitted to not being entirely truthful about his height, a small lie that foreshadowed a much larger pattern of deception and insecurity. He had also not been forthcoming about a significant personal decision, his desire to have a vasectomy, a crucial piece of information for a woman who had expressed a desire for more children. This was the first of many red flags, fluttering in the San Diego breeze before he even boarded the plane. Upon arriving in the Philippines, the culture shock was immediate and profound for Ed. His discomfort with the heat, the humidity, and the general living conditions of Rose's world was written all over his face. He sweated profusely, his face a constant mask of bewilderment. The first true test came when they arrived at Rose's family home, a humble dwelling with an open-air shop at the front. The sleeping arrangements were communal. There was no air conditioning, and a rooster crowed relentlessly outside his window. During a torrential downpour, rainwater leaked through the roof, a scene that Ed reacted to with barely concealed horror. He tried to be a good sport, but his body language screamed of a man utterly out of his element. He was a tourist in the landscape of her poverty, and he wore his privilege like a heavy, uncomfortable coat. The infamous moments began to stack up, creating a cringe-inducing Jenga tower that was destined to collapse. In a hotel room, he presented Rose with a gift, a toothbrush, toothpaste, and mouthwash. He then told her he was concerned about her breath, which he described as not pretty. Rose, humiliated, explained that she had a stomach ulcer, a medical condition responsible for the issue, and that she brushed her teeth every day. The moment was excruciating, a blunt force display of insensitivity disguised as concern. It was a pattern that would repeat. Later, he would watch her shave her legs in a basin of water, having previously asked her to do so because he found her leg hair unattractive. He saw it as a simple request. She and the audience saw it as a man attempting to mold a woman into his preferred image, chipping away at her identity piece by piece. Perhaps the most significant confrontation revolved around his past and future. He pressed Rose to take an STD test, framing it as a necessary step for him to trust her. While on the surface a practical request for a new sexual relationship, the implication was clear. He, the American, was clean, while she, the woman from a poorer country, was suspect. Rose, deeply offended, turned the question back on him, asking if he would do the same. The conversation was tense and unbalanced. It culminated in the ultimate reveal of his vasectomy lie. When he finally confessed that he did not want more children, Rose's dream of building a bigger family with him evaporated. It was the final, unforgivable deception. The trust was not just broken, it was shattered. Their relationship ended not with a dramatic fight, but with Rose's quiet, dignified exit. She walked away from the potential for a better financial life in America, choosing her self-respect instead. She told him he was a weak man, a liar who had embarrassed her, and in that moment, she reclaimed her narrative and became a hero to millions of viewers. For Ed, the end of his relationship with Rose was just the beginning of his life as Big Ed. He returned to America, a viral sensation. Memes of his face, slick with mayonnaise from a bizarre hair conditioning stunt, were everywhere. His likeness was on stickers, t-shirts, and mugs. He became a king on the personalized video app Cameo, churning out hundreds of videos a day for fans who were in on the joke. He embraced the persona, the lovable, goofy, slightly pathetic man looking for love. He leaned into the cringe, monetizing his own infamy. He seemed to exist in a strange paradox, at once the butt of a global joke and the one profiting from it. He spoke about his condition, Klippel-Feil syndrome, a congenital fusion of vertebrae in his neck that gives him a shorter-than-average neck and limited range of motion. He used it to garner sympathy and to explain some of his insecurities, yet he often failed to extend that same grace or understanding to the women in his life. His quest for love continued on the spin-off series, The Single Life. It was here that he met Elizabeth Liz Woods, a restaurant manager in San Diego and a single mother. The dynamic was different from his relationship with Rose. Liz was American, closer to his age, and very much a part of his world. Their initial dates were surprisingly charming. There was a flicker of genuine connection, a shared sense of humor, and an undeniable chemistry. Ed seemed softer, more willing to be vulnerable. He took her on a date to learn pottery. He opened up about his daughter, and for a brief moment, it looked as though he might have finally found a healthy, balanced relationship. But the old Ed was never far beneath the surface. The insecurities that had plagued his relationship with Rose soon resurfaced with volcanic intensity. He was possessive and jealous. He bristled when Liz's attention was on anyone but him. An early, explosive argument erupted after a wedding they attended. Ed, feeling ignored, accused Liz of having a relationship with a female coworker. The fight escalated, culminating in him telling her to pack her bags and get out of his house. It was the first of what would become a dizzying cycle of brutal fights, tearful breakups, and passionate makeups. Their relationship became a volatile vortex, pulling both of them into a spiral of emotional turmoil. They broke up and reconciled an astonishing number of times, a tally that became a running joke among viewers and fellow cast members. Each reconciliation came with promises from Ed to change, to go to therapy, to be a better partner. He would cry, express remorse, and vow to treat Liz with the respect she deserved. And for a short time, things would be good. They would post happy photos on social media, travel together, and talk about their future. But inevitably, the cycle would repeat. A minor disagreement would snowball into a screaming match. His controlling nature would reemerge, criticizing her weight, her work schedule, or her friends. A particularly damning piece of evidence of his behavior came in the form of a leaked phone call. In the audio, Ed can be heard berating Liz in a cruel and verbally abusive tirade, calling her stupid and belittling her. The public release of the call confirmed what many viewers had long suspected, that the toxic behavior seen on camera was not just for show, but was a genuine and disturbing part of their private dynamic. Despite this, they got back together again. He proposed and she accepted. The engagement was a reset button, a new promise that this time, things would be different. His daughter, Tiffany, was a vocal opponent of the relationship. She saw the toxicity and the unhealthy pattern and refused to give her blessing. Her disapproval was a constant source of tension, especially for Liz, who desperately wanted to be accepted into his family. Ed was often caught in the middle, trying to placate both his daughter and his fiancé, a task at which he consistently failed, often siding with his daughter and leaving Liz feeling isolated and unsupported. Their journey took them to another spin-off, 90 Day, The Last Resort, a therapy-driven retreat for troubled couples from the franchise. Here, their dysfunction was put under a microscope. They participated in group therapy sessions and individual exercises designed to expose the root of their problems. Ed admitted to his controlling tendencies and his deep-seated fear of abandonment. Liz spoke of feeling unheard and constantly walking on eggshells. They had moments of breakthrough, tearfully recommitting to one another and to the therapeutic process. Yet, even in this controlled environment, their old habits died hard. An argument erupted over a game, leading to another night of tension and tears. The therapy provided them with the language to describe their problems, but it seemed incapable of giving them the tools to actually solve them. They left the resort still engaged, still committed, but with the same fundamental issues simmering just below the surface. They moved to Arkansas together, another grand gesture meant to signify a fresh start. They were planning their wedding, designing invitations, and talking about their future in a new state, far away from the baggage of their life in San Diego. It was meant to be the final chapter, the happy ending they had been fighting for. But the foundation of their relationship was built on sand, and the tide was about to come in. The final breakup, the one that finally seemed to stick, was not caused by some grand betrayal, but by something mundane, something that perfectly encapsulated the absurdity and tragedy of their dynamic. Ed had prepared a spicy taco pasta for dinner for his son, who was visiting. Liz, not a fan of spicy food, expressed her frustration. This small disagreement spiraled into a massive argument, dredging up old resentments and insecurities. But the real catalyst was a conversation Ed had with his ex-wife, an interaction he hid from Liz. When Liz found out, it was the final straw. It wasn't about the conversation itself, but about the lie, the deception, the confirmation of a pattern that had never truly been broken. Ed, confronted with his lie, reacted not with remorse, but with cold indifference. He canceled the wedding via text message to their officiant without even telling Liz first. He asked his realtor, who was also their wedding guest, to tell Liz that she needed to move out of the house they shared. It was a cowardly and brutal end to a relationship that had been defined by chaos. He didn't have the courage to face her, opting instead to dismantle their shared life through intermediaries. In the aftermath, shown on camera, Ed seemed more annoyed than heartbroken. He spoke about the financial implications of the canceled wedding, about getting his deposit back from the venue. He seemed to view the end of his engagement as an inconvenient project management failure rather than the collapse of a loving relationship. Liz, on the other hand, was devastated. She had moved her life across the country for him, had endured years of emotional turmoil, and had defended him to her friends, her family, and the world, all in the belief that his love was real and that he could change. The final, cold dismissal was a cruel awakening. Edward Brown's legacy in the reality TV universe is a complex one. He is, without a doubt, a reality television icon, a character so compellingly flawed that viewers cannot look away. He is a master of self-branding who turned his 15 minutes of fame into a sustained career. But he is also a cautionary tale. His story is a study in insecurity, control, and the destructive power of a man who refuses to truly look at his own reflection. He craves love and acceptance, but seems incapable of providing the trust and respect necessary for a healthy relationship to flourish. He performs vulnerability for the cameras, crying and apologizing on cue, but his actions consistently reveal a man who prioritizes his own comfort and control above all else. He began his journey looking for his queen, but in the end, he was the